Welcome to Better Business Building, where I'm your host, Adam Manderovich, where I talk to business leaders from all shapes of life about what's worked for them and how they can help you win. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Paul. Disclaimer, we have spoken prior to this and I was absolutely electrified, encapsulated with our conversation around demand. But before we get there, tell me a little bit more about what you do and maybe how you got there, like what's your career look like to us have got that to that conversation.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, and I'm really excited to chat again, Adam. So my career has been spirally, to say the least. You know, I first started out in education, mate. I was a school teacher, absolutely nothing to do with the marketing that I'm doing today.
Yeah.
And I made a segue into growing my own business. So I left education, went in, started my own business, and it was in a consulting business, helping people create online education kind of content to be able to sell and market to scale up their products and services. Did that for like 7 or 8 years. Loved it, was super good, but man, I missed a team. You know, I really missed the corporate life. I really missed working with a big group. And so in the end of 2022, started 2023, got back into the B2B kind of marketing world. And was actually over in San Francisco and having the time of my life over there with a YC startup. But man, I missed home too much. I wanted to come back to Australia, and so transferred to another company in more of a founding marketer, growth marketing role. My experience in like working with startups and just getting really scrappy and having no budget, no time, and huge expectations is what I love, man. I just live and breathe that chaos. And so I'm in this role at the moment in a growth marketing, product marketing kind of scope, and doing absolutely everything that you can imagine to try and grow this product, Let It Drop. And that's how we got connected. And here we are.
Awesome, man. Well, I guess for the listeners, I guess where we've converged on the middle would be our love or findings of demand. And you've come, like many of my listeners and guests, from the marketing side, whereas I've come from that self-discovery from the head of sales side, realizing the model of sales-led growth and maybe the measurement metric upstream of MQLs is actually wrong and it's detrimental to the business, not only for the sales and marketing misalignment, but for the new business and customer success misalignment. So how, to answer your offline question, how I got to that realization for the listeners is through one of those heads of sales roles. I started looking at bid contracts and I was like, who the hell would read this crap? Like, do we actually send this out to like, and so where I first discovered that was the CMOs that I work with also didn't want to put their name to what they're being asked to produce. So red flag number one, if they don't believe what they're doing to put out to market to get us the business, that's telling me they don't believe in what they're producing, right? So, okay. Then I was like, okay, maybe I'm going to go read them, because if you're working in a market with a category demand where we've got the best price, the best product, and we're backed by the World Bank at that time, that's not giving away who I was working for. Why were we not winning these tenders? So I was like, I'm going to pull them apart and read it. So as you would know, in a formal setting like that, big corporate, big Melbourne, Sydney, Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, that might look like 33 pages about us, Paul, but not about what to get Paul as a company and the pathway to get him there. So I was like, this is crap. So what I did was I pulled that apart, wrote them into sales copy. And then I was like, how is that still going to be palatable for the reader or the audience to want to read it? So I was like, this is crap. I still need to think of a better way. So I made that into an animation, just with some tools as we're all probably familiar with back in the day when whiteboard and animations and all of that stuff was about. And I was like, but what have I actually done here? So I've created the recipe of that sales copy was half educational content, half known objections from their category of vertical. So I thought that would be pretty good of why they should go with us without telling them what it's going to get them, what educates them where they're going to go, as well as covering off their objections on the back end and what they need to do to get started. So I did that. And we sent that out to people with just a permission-based creative type opener, like, hey, Paul, I know you don't have time to talk to us. We've found this. After viewing it, you tell us if it resonates and we can just continue the conversation. So that was real basic 14 years ago. But what I came to discover was I was creating demand marketing content of what we should have been doing at the marketing top end. And that also showed me through that efficiency, through all of those people, 8 out of every 10 went to contract in a shortened sales cycle. So I was like, so what we're actually doing there is doing what the marketing and sales role should be doing. So yeah, fast forward to now, I did that at multiple places as people have seen, documented, whatever. And then I started talking about this on LinkedIn. And then people were like, could you do some of that for us? So that's how I got to it, man.
And it's like, yeah, I am that just pumps me up so much, because it's the exact problem that we have like found with Letter Drop, right? And it's what we're trying to solve there. What I've heard, and I was so naive to this, man, I had no idea that typically, or in a lot of cases, marketing and sales don't actually like each other or like talk to each other. They kind of just, they're like
that misalignment,
right?
But the misunderstanding of job function because of sales-led growth.
Exactly, right. And so, and it's how you like, and it might be a top-down thing, like how do you work out compensation, like who's actually getting credited with the work. And it's just, I think it gets a little bit convoluted. Egos get involved. It's career, like it's just sometimes a mess. I am quite an optimistic person. Like, man, I'm like, whatever, like we'll work together. Happy days. I had no idea that others were different. Very naive play on my part. But what happens, and what we found, was that where there is a disconnect, we have marketing trying to create all of these campaigns and content and assets, trying to create demand that aren't communicating or talking with sales in any real tangible way. And they're doing all of this customer research, all of these in the effort to create this content that is going to generate, pipeline. And most of it is a waste. 80% of it is just churning through it. They say, what's the saying? The CMO says, I know that 50% of our marketing is working. I just don't know what 50% that is. It's just like, there's no way to attribute it. There's no way to actually track down exactly what is kind of dialing in those campaigns. So anyway, what we found was, if we go to the source, right? If we go to those sales calls and if we listen to those objections and the insights and the questions and things like that, pull out those to create like the genesis of the content, that is going to be what resonates most with that ICP. When they land there, they're going to be like, wow, this sounds like exactly something that I'm thinking about. And we're like, yeah, no shit, right? Because this is yours. This is directly coming from you. But I think one of the biggest hurdles there, and what I've heard a lot is, especially having done this like new role a few times now, it's always get to know the customer, go listen to the sales calls. Who has time to listen to hundreds of hours of sales calls? Like literally no one from marketing is going in to listen to sales calls to try and like cherry pick out. And in like, Gong, you can get like little transcripts of the call and it'll tell you little like the tidbits and the takeaways and stuff and the objections, but it's only on like a per call basis. You can't get overarching themes. You can't get these, these plot points between all calls. And that's something that we've tried to solve, right, with Letter Drop, is just being able to screen all of those calls and pull all of that content into marketing so that they can then produce the content that is actually going to resonate, to create the demand.
Interesting. So, funnily enough, this is going to bring us to another discussion point, which you may or may not have already been aware of. But funnily enough, part of my argument of what I talk about in my process is business development's all but forgotten all these fundamentals, where there's two categories. We used to do feedback loops. So closed won, why did you buy from us? Closed lost, why didn't you buy? What could we have done better? And we gave the answers to marketing. The other component of that was we would catalog the market. Who's with who? What do they like? What they don't like? When would they come up with tender? What would that need to look like? Do they audit their existing processes? That then goes to marketing. That then creates the content you guys are talking about. So what it sounds like to me is, if more organizations readily use some of those fundamental processes that I heavily outline and bang the drum about, in lieu of Letter Drop, it would make your job even easier.
Oh, for sure, for sure. But it's what it comes down to is the wastage, right? Like how much wastage is there in marketing and all of these like fluffy campaigns and these, I don't know, it's just like a bunch of people. And I'm a marketer through and through. Like I'm not like dumping on marketers here, but there's just a lot of waste. There's a lot of work, a lot of campaigns, a lot of effort that goes into like indirect, results that aren't actually moving the needle or moving the revenue number, which I think is actually why we're seeing people like content marketers are just getting the chop, right? Because they don't own a pipeline number. They're not actually responsible for driving a needle on revenue. They're just there to fill up content. And these CMOs who are now a little bit more budget strapped and they're thinking, okay, we need to dial in here. They're just saying, I can't afford to have these kind of assets or these resources that aren't actually moving the needle. And they're trying to be more strategic there. But yeah, like you said, mate, if they just followed those processes and used the content that they already have, the inspiration they have, the evidence that is right there, rather than going out and spinning up, oh, we're doing this quarter, we're going to research this many archetypes, I'm going to talk to this many customers. I mean, how about you just like move from one desk to the other, go talk to sales. Like, hey, can you just copy paste? That'd be great.
But I think that part of that misalignment and misunderstanding comes from the model, right? So I can't unequivocally say that it's either's fault, but the repercussions downstream of the modeling following sales-led growth is marketing follows no intent lead gen. They don't know what works. They're just getting instructed. This is how many of these contacts we need to create to measure upstream to our group CEOs or our VC firm. We need to measure this. That then down to sales means we're not going to do the fundamentals because we're only measured on your contacts that we get from you guys to meeting conversion. It's not opportunity to build and bank revenue anymore. That's the reason the model's wrong. So I think the short answer would be, how about we not do sales-led growth and we go back to how it was previously when marketing was allowed to market, fund that, and sales then only really needed to close buyer-assisted actions because just educating and speaking to more of the wider percent of the market, not rubbing up the wrong way.
See, and then you also avoid there all of that like pitch slapping, that cold outbound, just where, that makes so much sense to me. My actual metric, the thing that I am compensated on as a bonus is SQOs, sales qualified opportunities. That's what I'm like as a marketer. That is what I am driving towards. So if my campaigns and my output does not drive SQOs, that impacts me. I don't care about traffic. I don't care. I mean, like I do in a way, like sure, they are directional, but the thing that I'm optimizing for is SQOs.
Yeah, man. It's the way it should be, right?
I wonder why it got so pear-shaped. Like, where did it go so wrong, do you think?
So my outside lens looking in at that to answer that question would be, everyone got obsessed with measuring metrics the easy way. So, hey, we're just going to message how many of these contacts that we get. It's not really intent. We're going to give that over here. And then these guys were like, okay, look, we'll just we'll measure how many of those we can get to a meeting at any cost. But the repercussions of that are, as I speak on my page every day when I post stuff, the sales teams no longer do fundamental actions, which would give the marketing the feedback loops and the categories to create the demand that would enable them to be buyer-assisted actions. So because the reporting became easy, we can't say it's just the VC firm's fault, because I'm not saying that. Part of that fault became the reportable metric that was built from the machine. Salesforce HubSpot made it easy to measure that. So that became the metric and that became the doing. And we've all but forgotten what the fundamentals were. So when I started saying this stuff like 5 years ago, people literally, I got hate mail saying I was crazy. And I'm like, so have you done full cycle business development for? Do you know what marketing is? Yeah. So that's where I think it came from, man. I think it is a combination of ease of reporting and defined by the tools, not the actions around the other way.
And saying that's such a good point, though. what I'm seeing now, just in my own, like talking with marketers and sales teams as we're trying to like dial in messaging and positioning, is that they see the problem, but they don't want to change.
Yep.
It's just like, it's really comfy hitting my volume of cold outbounds. It's really comfy with my setup and processes here. I'm not under any duress to change behaviors or patterns at all, because the system is there to support me in doing that.
Yep.
And that's been one of the kind of the challenging pieces for me. It's like, okay, well, how do you actually communicate this in a way that says, hey, like there's an alternative here that you're probably you're better off inclined to do. We solved the same thing for SEO. When a lot of the marketers or like SEO marketers were trying to optimize for traffic and ranking, the way that they were trying to do that was just content parity, right? So they were optimizing for the wrong metric, just because that's what they were told. We need more traffic, we need more keywords, blah, blah, blah. That led them out to just have this sameness of content, right? Instead of optimizing for qualified traffic or those SQOs that we talked about before. And no one wants to change. They're just like, no, I'm fine doing my keyword stuffing and, trying to game the system. And it just blows my mind. I'm like, what is happening? Like, why not? Yeah.
It's like, it's funny because that exact misunderstanding and argument is now what I used to talk about when I would said, what we're going to see is almost all of these mini areas are going to become like ultra siloed and patch resistant to actually go, hang on, this isn't working, because they need to maintain relevance to how they're measured, to maintain their department, to maintain their income. Yep. So where that's hidden right now in my mind is all of the companies that have a funding ramp, it's tucked away. But if you went, so look at it this way, right? If you and I went and started a new thing, I'm not saying that we are or we aren't, but let's just argument's sake, Paul and Adam go and build this new business. We're bootstrapped. What do? We start at basics and we go, okay, we need to speak to our market. We need to be able to educate who we'd like to reach. And we need to have feedback loops to make sure the education gets them to where they want to go. And then the buyer-assisted actions go straight here, here, and here. During that process, we would also do some fundamental things like go, hey, working with Adam and Paul would look like this. Communication plan bedded down. Cool. Anything we need to look out for? Is this serviceable? What's the contract size? What are the SLAs? This is what it looks like. Straight to contract, straight to activation, happy customer. But that's
and it's a flywheel. And it's a flywheel, right? And then we just like feedback, and it just kind of grows over time. For sure. Yeah. And that's not what's happening.
That's not the model that we have, because no one can lens out and go, okay, if we do that, I don't have a job. I'm not going to be the first to say, oh, look, maybe some of the stuff in my department's not really that functional, and you pay me for 8.5 hours and I work 2 hours and I don't really need to be here, and I can't see any value or revenue attributed to what I'm doing, but we just keep doing it anyway.
Yep. Man, and I get it. Like, so then, okay, let's play devil's advocate then for like the people in those roles. I get that's scary, man. That's like terrifying to be in that position, to have that realization like, oh, wow, I am pretty replaceable here. Like I am kind of obsolete. I think my advice to those people is to start working on an area of the business where you can like attribute revenue and move the needle. Go and pick up another project. Go and actually work on something that is of a tangible result that you can point to. You say, hey, I initiated this and I did it, and now I've driven X revenue. If you're driving revenue, you're safe at a business. Like that's bottom line.
So all that they need to do is possibly have the lens of, I'm going to proactively be part of the solution, not wait to be told that my department's part of the problem. So
that is a zinger. You should get that frame, man. That is an absolute zinger. I like that one.
I don't know. I think there's I think we're pretty aligned on what we see and why we don't see maybe what's pretty obvious to us. But like my ethos, my lens, my whole thing has always been end to end what would need to happen to get the best result for the customer and us as a business. So let's just do that. If we had no money, how would we do it? So let's
Yeah,
do
that's a
that.
good. Yeah.
So
Yep. 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 Yeah. People always try and romanticize like these lean methodologies and these lean approaches, and they end up being so bloated in the end. Like nothing about it is lean. It's like, okay, let's just go down to like nuts and bolts. What does the product need to do to get the result in an efficient way, in a lean way? What do we need to give the customer? What does the customer need to give us? Like, and scale that. You know, that seems to be the most efficient way to grow, in my opinion.
yeah, man.
But it never works out like that.
No, so I think that okay, so let's get back to maybe
Mm.
why we're not seeing that, maybe. So
Mm-hmm.
let's go the other way. When these money ramps run out, so let's say that the economy gets worse than what it is right now. Let's say, I don't want to be conspiratorial, but let's say that BRICS makes the US dollar go down even further.
Mm-hmm.
When all this money gets taken away from the companies that have these ramps where this is hidden, what do the people think is going to happen? Like they're going to be more and more exposed that their role actually does nothing towards building the business. So
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, one frame of that is to answer that question. If like you're a leader of a team at the moment, one way to answer that, the best way I've heard is if you had if you were coming in to mentor a person in your role or coach a person in your role, and you had to tell them to change like the thing that was most broken kind of thing, what would you tell them to change, or like what would you tell them to fix?
mm-hmm.
And the person already knows. They already know like what is
Yeah.
hemorrhaging and what is going wrong, and just go do that. Like start there, you know, because I think that instead of waiting for the money to run out and just assuming, oh, it's like a ticking time bomb, why not action it now? Why not just go and set up a little bit of a moat there and just protect yourself and your team and the business, right? Because it's going to be so much harder when it's actually restricted out of your control, rather than when you do have the capacity to go, okay, we need to make some big changes here. We're going to like reshuffle things in like a preemptive or proactive way. What would you cut first? Like if you're looking at this dichotomy between this sales is super bloated and they're just running their like outbound playbooks, you're looking at marketing who has no idea like what is actually resonating with, you know, their ICP. What type of approach do you go in there with then? Like what do you cut? How do you mix things up?
So the first part's has to be education, right? They need to, the three leaders, so marketing, new business, and customer success, need to get a line on what that needs to look like. Yeah, I don't want to segue and say I'm working on something right now that'll solve that problem, but I am. But let's just say that I haven't done that. That still the answer to that question needs to be education. So if they're not going to be aligned on what they need to do in terms of action to inspire their teams, it doesn't matter where we take the cuts from first. So yeah, I think that's where it needs to start. But what I was going to ask you is, why do you think we don't see it? Is it fear or ability?
Oh, I think it's fear. I think it's 100% fear. You know, I think that most people who get to a leadership role in sales or marketing, or maybe customer success too, are generally quite like resilient and just tenacious, hungry people. Like they are just going to hit a wall and they're going to run over it every single time. There's no way that you could get up into those roles without having that disposition. Therefore, it is purely on a fear base that they are not kind of tackling this challenge. It is not an ability thing. It is just, you know, we did an interview series with a bunch of CMOs, and I'm blanking on who the actual CMO was, but she said, you know, when we're trying to tell a marketer, or when a marketer is considering like picking up one of these new kind of role archetypes and being responsible for a KPI, there is so much resistance because they're afraid of their compensation. They're afraid of not being able to hit it, because if they're only being judged or hired on the merit of their vanity metrics, that's easy money. All day, every day, you know. But if it's now on a metric that is, it's just hard to hit and master, which is the whole point of sales and marketing. It should be really like difficult to water down and say no to all these other things to get to that one like pathway that moves the needle. Yeah, I just don't want to do it, mate. It's just, it's fear.
Yeah, I think that also extends to founders that may be technical in mind. Whereas I don't know if you saw the post the other day from John. It was a venture capital company in Melbourne, and I commented on it. Not sure if you saw it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But he was saying that half the old way of going to venture capital would be to make a pitch, cold outreach to those people, make that flawless, seamless, give them the right experience. The new way would be bring the market to you, show that you've got LOUs for those situations. But what I find is the founders that won't do that don't have the ability to do that. So they hide behind the fact that they're speaking to as many people as possible to send more decks and do more presentations, when if they went and got the feedback loops from market right now, they might already have the customer base or even an annual contract value pending that might lever them into their Series A, Series B from the get-go. So, yeah,
mate. This whole trend of like the founder-led growth trend and the founder-led marketing, I really like it, man. I love seeing just these bootstrap stories of these founders out there building in public and talking to customers and just sharing that story just in personally. Like, I find that really enticing to watch, but it also is so validating, right? For that market to go along, to build that audience, get that network, to then have the proof in the pudding and just be like, hey, look, here is everyone that I'm bringing to you. VC just sees that growth and goes, okay, let's go. Buckle up. I'm in.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I think that it has to be that way, because look at it, just common sense holistically, right? If we're not leading with what we want to see within the business, how do I expect my second, my third, my fourth in charge to be doing that if I can't do it?
Yeah.
How do I measure them on stuff that I don't know about?
Yeah. It's that old thing. It's like, if you're not willing to do like what you're asking, someone under you to do, then don't ask them. It's never gonna work out.
Yeah.
But also I know that for some founders, and especially maybe even more of the technical founders, showing up and being a dancing monkey can be a pretty uncomfortable kind of thing. A lot of people have a struggle to that. There's like a right and wrong way to do it. I think there's a way that you could approach it that isn't like, hey, look at me, and trying to game the system and be viral or do your dances on TikTok, whatever you're going to do. I think there's still a really eloquent like way of doing it. But I don't think there's anyone that like teaches that. There's no one who's like, you can mirror and mimic off other people, but no one's actually like walking these founders through the like pre-seed, early seed stage to go, hey, like, here's how you showcase your product. Here's how we talk about it and get that reach out there. I think that'd be super valuable.
Yeah, in my eyes, you've hit the nail on the head. Okay, hang on. Let me add a step. First step is for those founders to have one step of accountability, to realize that they can't do what we're asking them to do, for them to then look for a solution to solving that problem so that they can. Now, that solution, in my mind, would be for them to go through like a CRO school. So they know everything across the funnel, and they're not held over a barrel by the people that do. So, that's what I think where it needs to go. Justin, Michael, and Julia do that a fair amount in terms of what they do with hard skill exchange and hypercycle, but I still think there's a gap between, and I'm not knocking them in any way, please, Justin, Julia, if you're listening, I'm saying there's still a gap between what marketing should be, what sales was before, and linking that into customer success to make sure that all of that is not churn city. So to me, that would be, like a CRO school. That's what I think that they should go through.
Yeah, that's such a good point, man. I think all of them. Like, I feel like there has been a missing layer of education there, like about getting everyone on the same page of what we need to be thinking about, what we need to be optimizing about, what are we actually communicating to each other. We've accumulated in the last 10, 15 years, just a bunch of debt when it comes to sales and marketing and processes and things like that. I feel like cutting all that down and just getting back to, like you said, the fundamentals and the basics, which now no one actually really knows. If you have young founders they're not going to know that that's how it used to be. This is what it was. And I think just slapping even like demand generation or demand marketing, like it's just like a new name for like a really old concept. It's like
what should happen.
Yeah. Exactly, right? And it just becomes cool again, and it's what everyone's doing now. We're all hiring all these demand gen marketers. I think we just need a big cull, clean it all out, get rid of the trash, of the wastage. And everyone's going to be so much happier. They'll have a job that they're driving a revenue pipeline metric. They will feel this tangible impact on the business. There's going to be that motivation to go in and produce really good work. Like I find cohesively across the board, that just makes the most sense to me to have it set up in that way.
Yeah. Well, I think that with whatever's going to happen at market, whether monetarily or within terms of businesses, maybe also making that self-realization, we're going to get there this year, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah. So just so that, because you and I could talk about this all day, man. And I don't know if you've got time to do a 3-hour podcast today, which is my record. Cheers, Nelson Gilead, for the death of the SDR. Who do you think that you can help the most with what LetterDrop's doing now? And do you see that as a replacement from those current tools or an add-on for them? Or if you're, who's your targets for that? And what would that look like if you had everything go your way? Who would they be? Like Australia, the United States, United Kingdom, Europe? What type of companies? How can I help on that? Let me know.
Yeah, so we're kind of optimizing right now for late Series A to Series B, mid-market B2B companies. We are, what got LetterDrop to where it is the SEO tooling and stuff like that. It is such an amazing, like, out of the box experience that I personally love, like outside of being, employed by LetterDrop. I think it's one of the best kind of tools in the market. But where we're shifting to is more along the lines of like what we've been talking about is how do we align sales and marketing and cut out a lot of that breakage and wastage in that communication level. So if you are a business that uses Gong or you record all your sales calls and they have an API like Fireflies or something like that, we can just pull all of that data into LetterDrop. And this is super helpful for, if you're VP of sales and you are using your sales reps or SDRs or AEs to do their social selling, we can pull that insights, write the post for them using AI on templates and just distribute that out to the team. That's like a huge unlock. We can create sales enablement content from that. That just gets, so you finish a call, hang up, yep, good time. In my inbox, if I'm the sales rep, I get LetterDrop emails me, hey, based on your call, here are like the 3 pieces of sales enablement content that you needed to send them based on what you published. And we're just kind of like shortening that cycle. On the marketing side, we take all of those insights and we kind of help distribute that over LinkedIn and into the blog, right? To create that bottom of funnel SEO content that when someone's looking for a solution for that product, when someone is deep down in the end of the funnel and they see your product, they're based on the objections that they're seeing in the sales calls, then be like, wow, like this is exactly what I was looking for. So that's kind of who we are mostly aimed at helping at the moment. And there's a lot more coming down the pipeline on that sales call stuff that I can't talk about yet, but it's just, mate. It's going to be even better.
Awesome. Yeah, well, it sounds like there's a lot of synergy within maybe the fundamentals that I talk about and maybe crossing that over with your tool. And I'm sure that we'll talk about that offline. Do you have any final thoughts, Paul, for the listeners? Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'd just say, I think don't be afraid to, going back to what I said before, there has to be a shakeup, whether you are going to be the one to initiate the shift in your role or your capacity in that company, or whether it's external, there's going to be a change that happens. So you may as well own that. I think regardless of where you are a leader in your kind of org, whether you're just a contributor, make the shakeup now. Like just choose to own that it's going to be different and just take take charge. Like, don't just wait for it to come and slap you around. Just
Yeah.
go and do it, and you'll be way more prepared for when it does all shuffle up.
Be part of the solution. Don't wait till you're shown that you're part of the problem.
I like, see, again, put that, it's got to be on a shirt or something, man. That could be a bumper sticker soon.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, for the listeners, if they've loved what you've said and they've loved our conversation today, how do they get in touch with you? How do they get in touch with Letter Drop? Where's the best place to do that, Paul?
Yeah, so you can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn more than I should be. So just send me a DM or a message. The website to go check out is obviously letterdrop.com. If you want to book a demo, you'll see buttons, 1,000 buttons on the site. Just go book it and chat with the team, and we'll give you a poke through it and let you play around.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us and spitballing of what we believe marketing and sales should be for a better aligned end-to-end service delivery engine.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on.
Cheers, bro. Thanks for listening. If you, like me, have received great value from my guest, please like, share, and follow. See you next time.